Alright, Shalom. First off, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Ruach Kodash. I want to give double honors to our apostles and elders of the great millstone who ruled well and taught us this truth. And a sincere peace and salutations to all the Akim pushing this word and truth in all sincerity. It's the brother Ganon from DC Church coming back at you with a quick video. The Lord's will is going to be quick. Let me just jump into scriptures real quick, and then I'll explain where I'm going with it. This is 2 Corinthians 13:5. It says, examine yourselves whether ye be in the faith. Prove your own selves. Know ye not your own selves how that Yahweh Shah Hamashiach is in you, except ye be reprobates. And this video is inspired, by the Shah Amath here in the DC Church. And I was just watching his video where he was going into conduct, making sure that you're humble, knowing how to, deny the flesh and feed your spirit, and knowing how to check yourself. And the scriptures say, 1 Thessalonians 5, Salaki, my Bible all messed up. 1 Thessalonians 5:12, it says, and we beseech you, brethren, to know them which labor among you and are over you in the Lord, and admonish you. But the point is to know the men that's in your church, know the men that's amongst you, and personally knowing the brother Amath, knowing his ups and downs, understanding his fight in the truth. He's he's a man that can speak on these things. One thing he was going into in his video was how the movies will have the angel on the right shoulder and the devil on your left shoulder. He was speaking about taking heed to the angel, which is your spirit, and denying the devil, which is your flesh, and progressing in this truth, as you walk in this truth. And that's why I started in 2 Corinthians 13:5 with examining yourself, whether you be in the faith. You got to really be real with yourself, and as I was watching that video, that's what I was doing to myself, being real, because what do it means to be in this truth? What do it means to be in this faith? And it starts in Romans 12:1, where it says, I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of the Most High, that ye present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto the Most High, which is your reasonable service, which is the least thing that you can do. So that you in the faith if you're putting things in perspective, when you're actually giving your body as a living sacrifice, watching your conduct in this truth, as the older you get in this truth, making sure you're maintaining that humility, maintaining that respect to your elders, maintaining that respect to your fellow brethren. You start to get older, you get titles, making sure that your ears are still open to that younger brother, and whatever case it may be, putting on like Yahweh Shah, which his greatest trait was humility, long suffering. Verse 2, it says, and be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Being not conformed to this world, being so entrenched in the things that this world has to offer, whatever hobbies you may be into, the women that you may be into, your job that you may be into, your children that you may be into, the foods that you may be into, maybe you're not fasting enough, maybe you're not praying enough, That's the opposite of being renewed in the spirit of your mind. And that's showing that you are conformed to this world. You have to be real with yourself. And I'm speaking to myself, you know. Listening to the brother video, you're cut. But what do you do? As the scriptures say, the righteous man falleth 7 times and he get it back up. There's going to be times where you find yourself, not really walking that straight gate or lacking in your walk in this faith. And that's why it's important to examine yourself, whether you be in the faith. You got to really check yourself and be real and honest with yourself and say, you know what? I got to do better. I got to step it up, And one of the ways that you could do that is by fueling your spirit, is watching the videos, taking heed to the videos, keeping up with the apostle videos, attending class. When your brothers have events, attending the events, getting up with brothers. You got to feed your spirit. Hell, sometimes, which in my little time in this truth, a lot of things that help me recharge fully is, taking a trip. If you close to, brothers, outside of your church, outside of your norm, I'm close with, some of the brothers in the ATL church, some of the brothers in the Miami church, taking a trip, if your funds see fit, and fellowshipping with the brothers, and also the brothers in your own church, fellowship, fasting, praying, reading, denying this world. All of these things is you examining yourself, Romans 12:2 again, it says, and be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is good. What is good, what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of the Heavenly Father, the Most High. We got to prove what is good to Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua, and just continue to be real with yourself, and brothers got to be real with each other, But that's it, man. It was a few more things I wanted to say, but just to hammer in on that point, there's going to be times where your spiritual battery is low, but you got to recharge it. You got to take heed unto the scriptures. But with that, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahushua, Bahashem Kakudash. I want to give double honors to our apostles and elders of the great millstone who well taught us this truth. Shalom to the elect.